Birds. They're all around us, and it turns out they were all around Shakespeare too. In fact, Shakespeare himself grew up in a pretty rural area, so he had a really good understanding of different animals, plants, flowers, and birds, the raven himself. So in today's video, I'm going to talk through 14 different birds that Shakespeare references in his famous play Macbeth. We're going to talk about how he uses them as a motif and how each individual bird has symbolic meaning. We'll also talk about some imagery too, because depending on which part of the story he's telling and which character he's reflecting, the imagery of this play comes alive when you have a better understanding of the birds in the play. So let's jump in. Humans in the Renaissance believed in the great chain of being. Now, this was a God-given structure that they believed in that placed things in a hierarchical order, from God right down to the basest of materials or matter. So it went God, humans, birds, other animals, and then minerals at the bottom. And Jacobeans believed that all creatures were born into this natural hierarchy, and birds were positioned towards the top, literally because they were flying closer to God. Now, while beasts were pinned down by four legs, birds were untethered and could carry themselves up towards the heavens. And the bird closest to God was perceived to be the one that flies the highest, and that was the eagle. Now, I've structured our discussion today in the actual order of most hierarchical bird at the top, which is the eagle, right down to the lowest ranking bird. So James Edward Harting speculates that this eagle, it's likely that the only species Shakespeare was aware of was the golden eagle, which you can see here. The eagle is an enduring symbol of strength and power because these qualities were exhibited by its natural behaviour. It's one of the largest predatory birds in the world, with a lifespan of 23 years in the wild. Now, its longevity reached mythical proportions in Renaissance folklore. Now, there's only one reference to the eagle in the play, but it does have significance. It comes early in the play when Duncan asks if Macbeth and Banquo were dismayed by the imposing army that they had just fought. A sergeant replies, "As sparrows eagles or the hare the lion," meaning, no, they weren't dismayed. They weren't even freaked out by the other army. Here, Shakespeare's actually using a simile to describe how Macbeth and Banquo were actually unfazed by the enemy's attack. They were not, quote, dismayed, in the same way that an eagle would not be intimidated by a sparrow, a small bird that symbolizes a kind of harmless fragility. In essence, they were chill. You know, they were good. They were eagles when they were at battle. So this large predatory bird, it's territorial and fierce in nature. It's actually the perfect symbol to describe these strong masculine warriors, at least at the start of the play anyway. Next up, let's talk about owls. Now, out of the 14 birds that are referred to in Macbeth, the owl is the most frequently mentioned. And we often associate it in modern society with intellect or wisdom. But back in medieval times and during the Renaissance, they were actually widely detested. They were considered unclean, and their hooting at night was considered sort of like a symbol or an omen of death. They were, as a result, sometimes captured, killed, and even nailed to doorposts to ward off bad luck. Now, let's consider as well, when the owl is symbolising Macbeth in the play, these birds are nocturnal. And it's interesting that Macbeth commits regicide during the dead of night. So its nocturnal nature makes it night's black agent. So it hunts at night in the same way Macbeth killed at night. Within Macbeth, the owl is called a fatal bellman, an obscure bird, and, as we said, night's black agent. On the night of the regicide, Lady Macbeth even says that she heard the owl scream and the crickets cry. So that imagery of scream is obviously a reflection of a shrieking owl, but that screaming connotation also ties directly to the murder itself. And how can we forget the classic lines about a falcon towering in her pride of place, being hawked at and killed by a mousing owl? So what you have there is a nocturnal bird of prey killing another bird of prey. It's not normal. It should be chasing mice or small rodents, not another powerful bird. So on that note, let's talk about the falcon. So why is this significant? Well, the falcon is a symbol of high status, power, and nobility, which Shakespeare used in his own coat of arms. And it's a recurring motif in his plays that reflect social status that he himself aspired to achieve. Now, while it's not exclusive to royalty, the falcon does represent a kind of elitism associated with aristocracy and the prestigious sport of falconry during Shakespeare's time. So this unusual event of a falcon being killed by an owl is a metaphor for Macbeth's unnatural sin of regicide, where a lower ranking creature, the owl, kills a powerful, more noble creature, the falcon. Some additional cool information to know about that great quote is this word towering in her pride of place is a reference to falconry terminology, which actually means towering, meaning circling high in the sky. And pride of place refers to its highest point of flight. Could this be a reflection of the seriousness of this sin? Duncan, the prime of his life, just like the falcon towering in her pride of place. So this entire image reflects that theme of the natural order being subverted by evil deeds. Next, we have the kite. Now, kites are typically smaller and more agile than falcons, but they're less dominant in the bird of prey hierarchy. Red kites were common in Shakespearean London, so it's a red kite here, where they fed on scraps in the streets and collected rags or hung out washing for nest building materials. They're a small and swift bird. Kites were virtually untrainable as well, so they're less noble than the falcon. These carrion birds would nest in the city trees high up in buildings and swoop through streets, eating waste and food and offal. Now, the first reference to kites comes early in the play when Macbeth speaks to Banquo's ghost, saying our monuments, which means our graves and our tombs, shall be the maws of kites. The maws meaning the belly of kites. Now, he's saying that if the dead are going to return from their graves and haunt the living, then our bodies will be left unburied and literally, in Macbeth's mind, consumed by predatory scavenging birds. These lines show the flesh-eating nature of a kite that Macbeth was actually quite freaked out about. Now, the second reference to a kite is in, of course, everyone's favourite quote, Macbeth being referred to as a hell kite by Macduff, when he discovers that his whole family have been slaughtered. Now, it doesn't there's not a particular bird species called hell kites, it's just a regular kite, but he's put hell in front of it. We can assume to connote his fury and rage, and of course, again, that idea that it's a sin. Again, we have Macbeth being referred to as a predatory bird that has violently slaughtered people. And he's come in quickly to slaughter the family in a terrible attack that Macduff says comes in one fell swoop. Now, it's interesting to look at this word fell because it actually comes from the word felon and felony, meaning criminal and crime. And even in Old French, it literally means fell, wicked or wicked person. So in this fantastic line of one fell swoop from the hell kite, audiences understand that Macbeth metaphorically is this bird and is deeply wicked in his attack mode. Next up, we come to the raven, not to be confused with a crow. I'm told that these are a little bit more solitary. They've got thicker neck feathers and a totally different sound to crows that are a little bit smaller, more social, and have like a caw sound. So different sounds, slightly larger too here. So the raven is only referenced once in the play, and it comes in Lady Macbeth's phenomenal soliloquy, her unsex me here soliloquy, where she says, "The raven himself is hoarse, that croaks the fatal entrance of Duncan under my battlements." I don't know about you, but if I turned up at somebody's house for a sleepover, I wouldn't want a raven croaking upon my entrance. So we can assume, we know here that the raven is an omen for terrible things. It's a forewarner of death. Now, in the time of Shakespeare, the Great Plague was happening, and it was common inside and around London for scavenging birds like a raven to be eating on garbage and animal carcasses. So it's pretty dark imagery, and we've also got some personification where the raven is hoarse, which of course is a human characteristic, suggesting that the raven has been announcing the imminent death of Duncan for some time. Ew, that's creepy. So sorry, let's talk crows. The play mentions a crow once, and it happens just before Macbeth sends the murderers off to kill Banquo and his son Fleance. Macbeth says, "Light thickens, and the crow makes wing to the rooky wood. Good things of day begin to droop and drowse, while night's black agents to their praise do rouse." Okay, so Macbeth is the crow in this quote. Now, crows are primarily a symbol of doom, death, and the underworld due to their carrion feeding behaviour and ominous calls. Now, carrion meaning decaying flesh of dead animals. So yeah, you know, crows are going to eat dead flesh if it's available. Now, crows serve as a metaphor for wickedness, acting as messengers or agents of darkness and announcing and foreshadowing that impending violence and downfall of the characters. In this quote, wood means a dark, misty forest frequented by rooks. So rookie meaning crows. It can also symbolise the corrupt mind of Macbeth himself, with his dark thoughts and actions making him a metaphorical scavenger. Dark. And what I love about that quote is that description of droop and drowse. It's as if things aren't realistic even anymore in his world. And the night's black agents, to their praise do rouse. He's going to wake up his enemies as they are waking up to be prey. Awesome. Let's keep going. We've got next a martlet. Have you ever heard of them? I have not heard of them. They are a small bird. They're a little bit like a sparrow, or a swallow, I should say. A little bit like a swallow, which Banquo describes at the beginning of the play when Duncan rocks up to the castle and he says, "Oh, this is beautiful. I'm really excited to stay. It has a pleasant seat. It nimbly recommends itself to our gentle senses." Right, Duncan, cool, you're going to your death. We know that because we're the audience, and this is dramatic irony. It's Banquo who says, "This guest of summer, the temple-haunting martlet, does approve." So Banquo noticing that a cute little martlet is actually nesting at the top of the castle. This bird actually nests in high places. Banquo noticing that further establishes for us, and for Duncan anyway, that this is a safe place. This is a holy place, because they would often nest in churches, where he says, temple haunting. It further establishes this as a safe, beautiful place that they're going to be welcome in. But we, of course, know you're not. You're going to die. So this is a great example of dramatic irony here. So put that one in your toolkit for whatever writing you're doing, because it's a great little clue that Shakespeare includes to further establish the doom that is to come and heightens the tension because we know what's coming. Next up, chickens. Yeah, now there's 2 references to chickens. You might not think that they're very interesting, but I actually think they are, and they have real significance. So let's think about it. They were considered at the time of Shakespeare's play as paragons of motherhood. They also symbolise vulnerability as well. Chickens have been domesticated for thousands of years, and chickens, especially hens, were a source of meat and eggs for the peasant class. The care of chickens was also closely related to the women of the household, further linking them to domestic life and the sort of natural rhythms of the home. So we've got this great quote when Macduff finds out that his whole family, his wife and children, have been murdered by the hellkite, and he asks tragically, "What? All my pretty chickens and their dam?" in one fell swoop. Again, that imagery, it's heightened the tension for us as an audience because we picture the kite coming down to kill and scavenge amongst these innocent birds or innocent people. There's another reference to chickens as well, and it comes when Lady Macbeth has been sidelined from Macbeth's planning. He's scheming to kill Banquo and Fleance. She asks him, "What's to be done?" And he says, "Be innocent of the knowledge, dearest Chuck." Now, the phrase dearest Chuck is an Elizabethan term of endearment, roughly equivalent to what we might still say today of sweetheart or chick. It's derived from the literal sounds of a chicken, chuck, chuck, chuck. Now, in Shakespeare's plays, it appears in the mouths of Othello, Macbeth, and Antony, who use it to address their wives and loved ones with warmth and familiarity. So if you're talking about the relationship between Macbeth and Lady Macbeth, I find it interesting that he has a sort of affectionate term for her. In the beginning of the play, my partner in greatness, and towards the middle of the play, Chuck for sweetheart. Interesting. What does it tell us about their relationship? Next up, we have the chatterers, all 3 of them here, who I'm going to just call the gossip girls for this video so we remember them. So these 3 birds, you've got the chough, you've got the British magpie, and you've got a rook. And all 3 birds were considered chatterers, even having the ability to actually repeat words of humans. So I suppose they could transfer secrets really easily. At the time, to be called a chough was to be called a chatterer. I suppose in modern days we'd say a gossip. So it's this chattering that was considered a bad omen, but with mixed results, because these birds, of course, I guess it was presumed they could share your secrets. So it's interesting that Macbeth refers to them in his lines, "Augurs and understand relations have by maggot pies and choughs and rooks brought forth the secretst man of blood." So the term Augus refers to people who interpret omens, particularly through the flight and cries of birds, a practice linked to the idea that murderers could be revealed by such signs. Now, Macbeth here is musing that even the natural elements could reveal and know people's deepest, darkest secrets. Interestingly to know as well, maggot is sometimes called maggot pie by Macbeth. I think there's a reference to that in the play. This is a French word, magot, or M-A-G-O-T, for a hoard of secreted money. This title might be because magpies had a tendency to hide things and collect things, or it simply could just be because they liked to eat maggots. Fascinating. Next, we come to another small bird, the wren. In early modern England, the wren was believed to be the female counterpart of a European robin. So in the play, the wren symbolises bravery and devotion to family. Can you remember when it's mentioned? It's Lady Macduff condemning her hubby for abandoning his family by fleeing the country and thus leaving her and the whole family unprotected. So she makes a point in her beautiful little scene with her son that even the wren would stay and protect her young against the owl, which is another metaphor, of course, for Macbeth. She tells her son he loves us not, suggesting that he wants the natural touch. What does that mean? Well, in this context, wants means lacking or a deficiency, so he lacks the natural touch. The natural touch being a sense of affection and protection, right? So she's annoyed at Macduff, saying that he's lacking affection and even bravery of even a small bird to stay and protect his young. Again, Macbeth referred to as an owl, and what a great comparison to make and to reveal just how frustrated she is at Macduff for leaving them vulnerable. Last but not least, some awesome imagery. We have the goose. This happens in the play where the servant, towards the end of the play, has just delivered news about the large attacking British forces and a message that's left him literally so freaked out he looks like a goose. So the line is from Macbeth, "Where got'st thou that goose look?" Can you imagine this servant? Imagine telling Macbeth that the army is close and look, the game is over. Like, I would be terrified to tell Macbeth. I would think he's going to kill me. He says, "There's 10,000. Macbeth's like, "Geese? Like 10,000 what?" Servant says, "Soldiers, sir." So I can imagine he is literally shaking there. This is beautiful imagery. Where have you come with that goose look? That goose look. This is referring, like, this servant is likely pallid and pale, potentially even with goosebumps on his skin. And he uses it to insult the servant because he's disgusted by his fear. Of course, by this point in the play, the most repulsive thing to Macbeth is somebody's fear. It's disgusting, it's weak, it's wrong. So I love it. I particularly put this here because that's what I picture this servant to be looking like. That's it, 14 birds in this play. Now let me just tell you this. Any question that you could get about gender, about power, about disruption of the natural order, around loyalty, around characterization, around imagery, motif, understanding how he's used birds is going to absolutely enhance your writing, I think, in any context. So, good luck with your studies. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment if this has been helpful to you. Thanks, take care.